The morning sun cast long shadows across the busy downtown plaza as hundreds of people hurried to their destinations. Among the rushing crowd, a small figure caught the attention of passers-by. A little girl, no more than 8 years old, sitting alone on a concrete bench near the fountain. Her clothes were wrinkled and dirty, her hair tangled and her eyes red from crying. Sarah had been missing for 3 days. Her parents had reported her disappearance to the police and search teams had been looking everywhere. The local news had broadcast her picture, and missing person flyers were posted throughout the city. But somehow she had ended up here, in this crowded plaza, scared and alone. The plaza was known for its heavy security presence due to recent incidents in the area. Several uniformed guards patrolled the space, keeping watch over the constant flow of people. Among them was Officer Marcus Rodriguez, a veteran security guard who had worked this beat for over 15 years. He was known for his stern demeanor and no-nonsense approach to his job. People often described him as intimidating, with his tall frame and serious expression that rarely showed emotion. As the morning progressed, more people noticed the little girl. Some glanced at her with curiosity, others with concern, but most simply walked past, too busy with their own lives to stop. The girl's quiet sobs became more audible as the plaza filled with the usual rush of commuters and shoppers. A few kind strangers had approached her earlier, asking if she was lost or needed help. But Sarah was too frightened to respond properly. She had been taught not to talk to strangers, and her traumatic experience over the past few days had left her even more withdrawn and fearful. Each time someone tried to help, she would shrink back and shake her head, tears streaming down her face. The situation was becoming more noticeable. Store managers from nearby shops began to peer out their windows, wondering about the child who seemed to have appeared from nowhere. Some called their supervisors, unsure of what to do. A few good Samaritans had tried to contact the authorities, but in the confusion of the busy morning, their calls hadn't yet resulted in immediate action. Officer Rodriguez was making his usual rounds, checking entrances and monitoring the crowd flow when he first spotted the girl. From a distance, he could see she was distressed, but he initially assumed she was with family members who were nearby. It wasn't uncommon for children to have small meltdowns in public spaces, especially when they were tired or overwhelmed by crowds. However, as minutes passed and no adult came to comfort the child, Rodriguez began to pay closer attention. His trained eye scanned the surrounding area, looking for anyone who might be with her. Parents stepping away to make phone calls, grandparents sitting on other benches, siblings who might be playing nearby, but there was no one. The girl's crying intensified, and she began looking around frantically as if searching for someone specific. Her small voice could barely be heard over the noise of the plaza, but those closest to her could make out her desperate calls for help. She was clearly lost, scared, and running out of hope that anyone would notice her plight. As Officer Rodriguez moved closer, he began to piece together that this wasn't a simple case of a child separated from parents during a shopping trip. The girl's appearance, her obvious distress, and the fact that no one had claimed her for what seemed like hours suggested something more serious was happening. His years of experience had taught him to recognize when a situation required immediate attention, and every instinct was telling him that this little girl needed help right now. Officer Rodriguez approached the bench slowly, not wanting to frighten the child further. His imposing figure had intimidated many adults over the years, and he was well aware that his appearance might scare a little girl who was already terrified. As he got closer, he could see the full extent of her distress. Her face was streaked with tears. Her small hands were shaking, and she kept looking around desperately as if hoping to see a familiar face in the crowd. "Hey there, sweetheart," Rodriguez said softly, crouching down to her eye level several feet away from the bench. His voice, usually gruff when dealing with troublemakers, took on a gentle tone that surprised even him. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" Sarah looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. She had never seen a security guard up close before, and his uniform made her think of police officers she had seen on television. She wasn't sure if she should be scared or relieved. Her parents had taught her that police officers were there to help, but her recent experience had left her unsure about trusting any adults. "I want my mommy," she whispered. Her voice barely audible above the sounds of the plaza. Fresh tears began rolling down her cheeks as she spoke. "I can't find my mommy and daddy." Rodriguez felt his heart clench at the sight of this vulnerable child. Despite his tough exterior, he had a soft spot for kids. He was a father himself with 2 daughters at home, And the thought of one of them being lost and scared like this little girl made his protective instincts kick in immediately. "What's your name, honey?" he asked, maintaining his distance but keeping his voice warm and reassuring. "I'm Officer Rodriguez, and I'm here to help you find your mommy and daddy." "Sarah," she said quietly, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Sarah Thompson. I've been looking for them for so long." The name struck Rodriguez immediately. He had seen the missing person flyers posted around the area just days before. Sarah Thompson, 8 years old, missing for 3 days. The police had been searching everywhere for her. His pulse quickened as he realized he was looking at the child who had become the focus of a massive search operation. "Sarah, I think I know who you are," Rodriguez said carefully, pulling out his radio. "A lot of people have been looking for you. Your parents are very worried about you." Before he could contact his dispatch, Sarah suddenly stood up from the bench and began backing away from him. The mention of people looking for her seemed to trigger a fear response. Her experience over the past few days had taught her to be wary of adults who claimed they wanted to help her. "No, no, no," she said, shaking her head frantically. "I don't want to go with anyone else. Bad people said they would help me too. I just want my mommy." Rodriguez realized that Sarah had likely been through something traumatic during her disappearance. Her reaction suggested that someone had possibly taken her or hurt her, which explained why she was so afraid of trusting adults, even those in uniform who were genuinely trying to help. A crowd was beginning to form around them as people noticed the interaction between the security guard and the distressed child. Some recognized Sarah from the news reports and missing person flyers. Others were simply drawn by the emotional scene unfolding before them. "I'm not going to hurt you, Sarah," Rodriguez said, staying in his crouched position to appear less threatening. "I promise I'm one of the good guys. Would you like me to call your parents so you can talk to them?" But Sarah was too overwhelmed and scared to think rationally. The crowd gathering around them made her feel trapped, and she began to panic. Without warning, she turned and started running away from Rodriguez, weaving through the crowd of people who had stopped to watch. Officer Rodriguez's heart raced as he watched Sarah disappear into the crowd. His first instinct was to chase after her, but his experience told him that pursuing a frightened child would only make things worse. Instead, he quickly activated his radio to alert other security personnel in the area, while keeping his eyes on the direction she had run. "All units. We have the missing Thompson girl in the plaza." He spoke urgently into his radio. 8-year-old female, brown hair, wearing a pink shirt and jeans. "She's scared and running. Do not approach aggressively. Repeat, do not pursue. Set up a perimeter but keep distance." The crowd in the plaza had grown larger as word spread that the missing child from the news was here. Some people pulled out their phones to call police, while others tried to help by pointing in the direction Sarah had gone. The situation was becoming chaotic, which was exactly what Rodriguez wanted to avoid. Sarah had managed to squeeze through the crowd and was now near the far end of the plaza, close to a busy street. She was breathing heavily and looking around frantically, trying to find somewhere safe to hide. The noise of traffic and the sight of so many strangers made her feel even more overwhelmed and lost. Rodriguez began moving through the crowd, asking people to step back and give the child space. His commanding presence helped disperse some of the onlookers, but many remained, genuinely concerned about the little girl's welfare. He could see Sarah in the distance, pressed against a storefront window, looking like a cornered animal. "Please, everyone needs to back away," Rodriguez announced loudly. "This child needs space and quiet. The more people around, the more scared she gets." A woman in the crowd spoke up. "That's the little girl from the news, isn't it? Sarah Thompson. My heart breaks for her family." "Yes, and that's why we need to handle this carefully," Rodriguez replied, never taking his eyes off Sarah. "She's been through something traumatic, and we need to get her back to her parents safely." Meanwhile, Sarah's panic was reaching a dangerous level. She was so close to the street that one wrong move could put her in serious danger. Cars were speeding by just a few feet away, and she seemed unaware of the traffic as she focused only on the crowd of people who she perceived as threatening. Rodriguez made a decision that went against his training but felt right in his heart. Instead of coordinating with other officers or waiting for backup, he slowly walked toward Sarah alone, keeping his hands visible and speaking in the gentlest voice he could manage. "Sarah, honey, I know you're scared," he called out to her, still maintaining distance. "I have little girls at home too, and if they were lost, I would want someone kind to help them find me. Sarah looked at him with tears streaming down her face. She was trapped between the busy street behind her and the crowd in front of her, with this large security guard slowly approaching. Everything in her wanted to run, but she had nowhere else to go. "I promise you, Sarah, I am not going to hurt you," Rodriguez continued, his voice carrying over the noise of the plaza. "I just want to help you call your mommy and daddy. They love you so much, and they've been looking for you everywhere." The crowd watched in tense silence as this intimidating security guard transformed into a gentle, caring figure before their eyes. Some people began to tear up as they witnessed his patient, compassionate approach to the frightened child. Rodriguez knelt down again, this time much closer to Sarah, but still giving her space to move if she needed to. "Would you like to see a picture of my daughters?" he asked, slowly reaching for his wallet. "Their names are Maria and Elena, and they're not much older than you." Rodriguez carefully pulled out his wallet and opened it to show Sarah a small photo of his two daughters. The girls were smiling brightly in their school uniforms, and their warm expressions seemed to have an immediate calming effect on Sarah. For the first time since he had approached her, she stopped crying and looked at the picture with curiosity. "This is Maria," Rodriguez said softly, pointing to the older girl in the photo. "She's 10 years old and loves to draw pictures of flowers. And this is Elena, she's 9, and she's always trying to help people, just like I'm trying to help you right now." Sarah wiped her eyes and took a small step closer to get a better look at the photo. The mention of normal, everyday activities like drawing flowers made her think of her own life before everything went wrong. She remembered drawing pictures for her parents and how they would put them on the refrigerator. "They look nice," Sarah said quietly, her voice still shaky but no longer filled with panic. "They are very nice girls," Rodriguez agreed, keeping the photo visible. "And do you know what they would want me to do if I found a little girl who was lost and scared?" Sarah shook her head slightly, still keeping her distance but no longer looking like she was about to run. "They would want me to help her find her family, because that's what families do for each other. And sometimes when families can't find each other, other people step in to help bring them back together." The crowd around them had grown quiet, watching this gentle exchange between the security guard and the lost child. Many people were recording on their phones, but they did so quietly, not wanting to disturb the delicate moment unfolding before them. Rodriguez slowly closed his wallet and put it back in his pocket. "Sarah, I know you've been hurt and scared, and I know it's hard to trust people right now. But I promise you on my daughter's lives that I am only here to help you get back to your mommy and daddy." Sarah considered his words carefully. There was something about the way he talked about his own children that made her feel like maybe he really was one of the good people her parents had told her about. His voice was gentle, and he hadn't tried to grab her or force her to come with him like others had done. "Are my mommy and daddy really looking for me?" she asked, her voice small and hopeful. "Oh, sweetheart, they never stopped looking for you," Rodriguez said, his own voice becoming emotional. "The whole city has been looking for you. Your parents have been on television asking everyone to help find you. They love you so much." Fresh tears began to flow down Sarah's cheeks, but these were different from the tears of fear she had been crying. These were tears of relief and hope. For the first time in days, she began to believe that she might actually see her parents again. "I want to go home," she whispered. "I want to hug my mommy." "I know you do, and I'm going to help make that happen," Rodriguez said, extending his hand toward her. "But first, I need to call them and let them know you're safe. Would that be okay?" Sarah looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment. Everything in her recent experience told her not to trust adults, especially ones she didn't know. But something about Officer Rodriguez felt different. Maybe it was the way he talked about his daughters, or the patient way he had approached her, or the genuine kindness in his eyes. Slowly, very slowly, Sarah reached out and took his hand. The crowd around them let out a collective breath they didn't realize they had been holding. Some people began to applaud softly while others wiped away tears of their own. With Sarah's small hand in his, Rodriguez felt a wave of relief wash over him. But he knew the most important part was still ahead. He needed to contact her parents and get her to safety as quickly as possible, while keeping her calm and comfortable. "Sarah, I'm going to use my radio to call some people who will help us reach your parents, okay?" he explained, speaking directly to her. "You can stay right here with me the whole time." Sarah nodded, still holding his hand tightly. The physical connection seemed to give her courage, and she felt safer than she had in days. Rodriguez spoke into his radio again, this time with Sarah standing beside him. "This is Rodriguez. I have Sarah Thompson safe with me in the main plaza. Request immediate contact with her parents and child services. Also requesting medical personnel to check her condition." Within minutes, the plaza began filling with police cars, ambulances, and news crews who had been monitoring police scanners. The scene that had started with one security guard and one lost child was rapidly becoming a major media event. "Are all these people here for me?" Sarah asked, looking overwhelmed by the sudden activity. "They're here because a lot of people care about you and want to make sure you get home safely," Rodriguez explained. "But you don't have to talk to anyone except your parents if you don't want to." Detective Maria Santos, who had been leading the search for Sarah, arrived on the scene and approached Rodriguez and Sarah carefully. She had been briefed on the situation and understood that the child was fragile and needed gentle handling. "Officer Rodriguez, I'm Detective Santos," she said, crouching down to Sarah's level. "And you must be Sarah. Your mom and dad are on their way here right now." "Really?" Sarah's eyes lit up for the first time. "They're coming here?" "Yes, they should be here in just a few minutes," Detective Santos confirmed. "They were so happy when we called them. Your mom started crying happy tears." While they waited, Rodriguez stayed close to Sarah, understanding that she had formed a bond with him and felt safest in his presence. He told her more stories about his daughters and asked her about her own interests, helping to keep her mind off the chaos around them. "Do you like to read?" Rodriguez asked. "Yes, I love books about animals," Sarah replied, seeming more like a normal 8-year-old child with each passing minute. "Maria loves animal books too. She has a whole collection of books about horses and dogs." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of car doors slamming and frantic voices calling Sarah's name. Through the crowd of officials and reporters, 2 figures came running toward them. "Sarah! Sarah!" The voices belonged to Jennifer and Michael Thompson, Sarah's parents, who had been living their worst nightmare for 3 days. Sarah's head whipped around at the sound of her mother's voice. When she saw her parents pushing through the crowd, she let go of Rodriguez's hand and ran toward them as fast as her little legs could carry her. "Mommy, Daddy," she cried, throwing herself into their arms. The reunion was emotional beyond words. Jennifer Thompson collapsed to her knees, holding her daughter so tightly it seemed like she would never let go again. Michael wrapped his arms around both of them, tears streaming down his face. The 3 of them stayed locked in that embrace for several minutes while everyone around them watched with their own eyes full of tears. Rodriguez stood back, watching the family reunion with a satisfaction deeper than anything he had felt in his career. This was why he had become a security guard in the first place, to help people, to keep them safe, to make a difference when it mattered most. After the initial emotional reunion, the Thompsons slowly became aware of the crowd that had gathered around them. Jennifer looked up from holding Sarah and immediately sought out Officer Rodriguez, who was standing respectfully to the side, giving the family their space. "Are you the one who found her?" Jennifer asked, her voice thick with emotion as she approached Rodriguez while still holding Sarah's hand. "Yes, ma'am. But she's the brave one," Rodriguez replied humbly. "She was very scared, but she was also very strong." Michael Thompson extended his hand to Rodriguez but then pulled him into a heartfelt embrace instead. "Thank you," he said simply. But those 2 words carried the weight of 3 days of anguish, fear, and desperate hope. "He showed me pictures of his daughters," Sarah told her parents, looking up at Rodriguez with trust and affection. "And he promised he would help me find you." Jennifer began crying again as she realized how gentle and patient this security guard must have been with her daughter. She could see that Sarah felt safe with him, which was remarkable given what the child had been through. Detective Santos approached the family to explain the next steps. "We'll need to take Sarah to the hospital for a medical evaluation, and then we'll need to interview her about what happened during the time she was missing. But for now, we just want to make sure she's physically okay. I want Officer Rodriguez to come with us," Sarah said suddenly, surprising everyone. She had formed such a strong bond with him during their brief time together that the thought of separating from him felt scary. Rodriguez looked at the parents questioningly. He didn't want to overstep boundaries, but he also didn't want to abandon Sarah if she felt she needed his support. "Of course," Jennifer said immediately. "If that would make Sarah feel better, we would be honored to have you stay with us." As they prepared to leave for the hospital, news reporters began approaching the family, hoping for interviews and statements. Rodriguez immediately stepped in front of them, using his security training to create a protective barrier around the Thompsons. "No interviews right now," he said firmly. "This family needs privacy and time to heal." The crowd that had gathered to witness the reunion began to applaud as the family walked toward the waiting ambulance. Many people were openly crying, moved by the scene they had just witnessed. Videos of Rodriguez's gentle approach with Sarah and the emotional family reunion had already begun spreading on social media. At the hospital, Sarah was examined by doctors and found to be physically unharmed, but emotionally traumatized. Rodriguez waited in the hallway with the parents while the medical team did their work. "I don't know how to thank you," Michael said to Rodriguez as they sat in the waiting room. "The way you handled her, the patience you showed, it was exactly what she needed. I just treated her the way I would want someone to treat my daughters if they were in the same situation," Rodriguez replied. "Any parent would understand that. Not everyone would have had the compassion you showed," Jennifer added. "You could have just waited for backup or handled it by the book, but you made it personal. You made her feel safe." When Sarah emerged from her medical examination, she immediately looked for Rodriguez and ran to him for a hug. The gesture wasn't lost on anyone present. This child had found safety and comfort with a man who had initially been a stranger, but who had shown her the kind of gentle strength that helped her begin to heal. The police investigation would later reveal that Sarah had been taken by a woman who had been struggling with mental health issues and had convinced herself that Sarah was her own daughter. The woman had kept Sarah in a small apartment across town, and Sarah had managed to escape when the woman fell asleep. She had wandered the streets for hours before making her way to the plaza where Rodriguez found her. In the weeks following Sarah's rescue, Officer Rodriguez found his life changed in ways he never expected. The video of his gentle interaction with Sarah had gone viral, reaching millions of people around the world. News outlets from different countries picked up the story, calling it a perfect example of compassion in action. Rodriguez returned to his regular duties at the plaza, but now people recognized him everywhere he went. Children would wave at him excitedly, parents would stop to thank him, and his fellow security officers looked at him with new respect. He had become a symbol of what it meant to serve and protect, especially the most vulnerable members of society. The Thompson family stayed in touch with Rodriguez, and Sarah asked to visit him at work several times. Each visit showed how much she had healed from her traumatic experience. The trust she had placed in Rodriguez that day in the plaza had become the foundation for her recovery. "She talks about you all the time," Jennifer told Rodriguez during one of their visits. "You gave her back her faith that there are good people in the world who will help when she needs it." Rodriguez's own daughters, Maria and Elena, had become local celebrities at their school because of their father's actions. They were proud of him in a way that went beyond typical family pride. They understood that their father had used his love for them to help another child, and that made his actions even more meaningful. The security company Rodriguez worked for promoted him to head of security and asked him to help train other officers in dealing with children and vulnerable individuals. His approach became part of their official training program, emphasizing patience, empathy, and the importance of seeing each person as someone's beloved family member. Sarah's recovery was remarkable. With the help of counseling and the loving support of her family, she gradually overcame the trauma of her experience. She often told people that Officer Rodriguez was her hero, and that he had shown her that even when scary things happen, there are always good people ready to help. 6 months after the rescue, the city honored Rodriguez at a special ceremony. The mayor presented him with a Medal of Valor, and Sarah was there to present him with a drawing she had made of the two of them in the plaza. In the picture, Rodriguez was kneeling down with his hand extended, and Sarah was reaching out to take it with a big smile on her face. "This is how I want to remember that day," Sarah told the audience at the ceremony. "Not the scary parts, but the moment when I knew I was going to be okay because Officer Rodriguez cared about me." Rodriguez's actions had rippled out far beyond that single day in the plaza. Police departments around the country began implementing new training programs based on his approach. Parents felt more confident knowing that there were officers like him working to keep their children safe. And children who heard the story learned that authority figures could be trusted allies in times of trouble. The plaza where everything happened installed a small plaque commemorating the event, But Rodriguez always said the real memorial was in the lives that were touched by what happened that day. Sarah went back to being a normal 8-year-old, playing with friends and drawing pictures and feeling safe in the world. Her parents regained their faith that their community would protect their daughter, and Rodriguez continued his work with a deeper understanding of how powerful simple acts of compassion could be. Years later, when people asked Rodriguez about that day, he would always say the same thing: "I didn't do anything special. I just remembered that scared little girl was somebody's whole world, and I treated her the way I hoped someone would treat my daughters if they ever needed help." But everyone who witnessed his actions knew that what he did was indeed special, and that sometimes the most extraordinary moments come from ordinary people choosing to lead with their hearts.